Welcome to Ace of Pentacles, your career strategy and workplace wellness podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm so happy you're here. Join me every week as we investigate how people design and discover their way through their careers. Together, we'll explore the science of well-being at work and discover tools and strategies to help us do well and be well. Hi, Tian Tian. Welcome to Ace of Pentacles.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm very excited to talk to you today. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to our audience, and I'll go ahead and share your bio with them so they have context for our conversation.
Sounds good.
All right. Tian Tian is a holistic transformation coach who holds spaces for healing and transformation. In her one-on-one work, she guides high-achieving Asian professionals who are ready to break free from hustle culture and end the cycle of burnout and create a vision of success that actually feels good. Her approach is holistic, integrating body, mind, and soul rooted in ancestral and ancient wisdom and backed by modern science. In addition to her one-on-one coaching, she also hosts international retreats and community workshops to help people find a sense of connection to body, community, and nature. All right, Tian Tian, let's start with you telling us a little bit about your career story. You and I volunteered together, and we've been friends for a long time, and I'm just so inspired by just watching you go through this journey. You started at Wall Street, and now you're a holistic transformation coach. So tell us how that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I do feel like I have pivoted my career multiple times in the past decade or so. So as you mentioned, yeah, I started my career on Wall Street as actually an investment banker. And even just saying that, I feel like this has been lifetimes ago. And when I came to move from New York City to the Bay Area in California, that's when I pivoted to work for corporations, like corporates. And from there, as you know, I went back to business school on the East Coast, so a lot of back and forth at Harvard Business School, in which then afterwards I pivoted into tech, primarily social impact related tech products and ed tech. Yeah. And then since then, I've been doing a bunch of experiments. And now my main focus is a holistic transformation coach.
Wow, what a journey. Tian Tian, when did you have that aha moment or that key inflection point that made you say, I'm going to change my career?
Yeah, absolutely. Even I would say my career path, probably both on Wall Street and tech, even though they're in different industries, are very similar in nature. And what I mean by that is both industries and the roles that I was in were um, very high demanding and high achieving, very strategic and analytical. So I did that for probably a decade. And I remember pretty clearly the inflection point. It was when I was working at a big tech company in downtown San Francisco. And I remember going to my acupuncturist that my work provided. Because as you, you also had worked in tech. Tech has a lot of great benefits. So it provides you with gym, laundry, acupuncturist. So I was in this acupuncturist appointment, and I had been seeing him for 6 months. And every time I saw him, he really held space for me and really asked me, "Are you okay?" I think he could feel in my body that I was there was something going on that I didn't realize myself. And he kept asking that. And even at the time when he asked that, I was like, this guy doesn't know me. Why does he keep asking me these questions, right? It feels so personal. I felt like I was really seen, but I didn't want to be seen that way. And one day I sort of just broke open after he asked me if I was okay. And I was like, no, I'm actually not okay. And actually, at that time, I already started getting sick. I had some GI issues and insomniac. My hair was actually balding. So all this patch of hair that you see right now, it was all falling out. Yeah, I was so dissociated and numb and just was so in my head that I didn't realize a lot of the signals my body was telling me until this really kind man, in my workplace reflected back at me. So I remember that day while I was getting acupunctures and needled, I just bawled because something really opened within me, almost like the dam was removed and the floodgate opened. And that was this inflection point in which I was like, wow, I really have to assess where I am and if my version of success was worth my physical health, mental health, spiritual health.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating to me how often we will internalize the stress to the point where our bodies start screaming, like the loss of the hair and,
Well,
you can't move or you have like GI issues. There's for me, it was headaches and I used to never get headaches. And I was
yeah.
like, what is going on? I'm very aware of like when something's off in my body. But even then I was like, oh my gosh, I've been feeling a headache for a long time and it just kind of like happened. You don't keep track of it. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Our body just has so much wisdom and is constantly
Yeah.
communicating to us. A lot of us are not taught to read our body signals and languages that is constantly sending signals, right? And telling us. And
Mhm.
it took someone else to reflect back at me what was happening to fully realize reality and rather than sort of denying. And yeah, so it's definitely been, I look back at this time and I call it my dark night of the soul or quarter life crisis, whatever you want to call it or label it, right? And even though it was my breakdown, I am now so grateful for this chapter because my breakdown really became my breakthrough and it helped me reset and really ask myself, what matters to me? And what are my values and what do I actually care about? And if I had only one day to live, is this still going to be the life that I would feel proud of living? So it kind of put things into perspective for me as I was pushing to the edge. So for a lot of your listeners who are listening to this recording, I hope you know that if you're stressed or burned out, it's actually sort of a gift in disguise, right? An opportunity really for us to ask ourselves these bigger questions that we might not have spaciousness to tap into when life gets really busy and when work gets really busy. And it's a signal, it's an early indicator that
Mhm.
some change and some transformation is about to happen. So wanted to just give some hope and some reframe. Yeah.
That's a very, very hopeful way of explaining it because I love how you said a change or a transformation is about to happen. Because so often we feel like we have to do something, we have to initiate, we have to get started, right? And I love that. That feels very much that feels like a big hug where it's like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to get through this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's we are being initiated.
Yeah, I love that. I love that reframe. Thank you for sharing that. So you're at this acupuncturist's office and you're having this moment of realization that something's wrong. Tell us a little bit more about what happens after that. What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't do anything immediately because I was actually so overwhelmed that I didn't know what to do. But what I knew to be true was something wasn't working out for me. And I didn't know what the path forward looked like. And I had worked up to almost a decade at this point in this sort of career and capacity.
Yeah.
So that was everything I knew to be true, right? So you can imagine how scary it was to be like, oh, wait, it's not working. And it took me actually a few months to get to a point where I realized, okay, I really have to prioritize my body. actually not okay to only sleep 3, 4 hours every night, or even if I sleep, I wake up and not be fully present, and always felt
Mhm.
like I was running on the empty or on the edge, and I was just becoming a version of myself even I wasn't happy about, let
Mm.
alone the impact I had on, my colleagues and my friends and my community. And then at some point, I decided that I'm actually just going to take some time off to really figure out. And what that meant was quitting my job. And I had never quit a job before or anything actually up to that point. You know, coming from an immigrant family,
Mm.
perseverance and powering through, right? I see you nodding your head. That's a
Yep.
core value. We just eat that bitterness and struggle through. We don't quit. Really make even thinking about it was scary, and quitting that was even more scary. And thankfully, I was working with a coach at the time, which then influenced me becoming a coach later on, and also working with a therapist to really help me understand some of these underlying paths, to then find the courage to be like, okay, this is not permanent. Just because I quit my job, it doesn't mean that not going to have this career. It's not that black and white. And I can just take some time off, create space, pause, reflect, and then figure it out from there. And so, yeah, that's what I did after this aha moment.
Yeah. Tian Tian, how long ago was that?
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me pause and think, because I feel like time is time is just like,
Time is not real.
yeah, time is not supposed to be illusionary. It's not
Yeah.
linear the way that we might think it is. This
Yeah.
was 2019, so it's been 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and, after I quit that job, I give myself, 6 months break and actually went back to another tech job, and actually this time at a startup, which was in a lot of ways even more demanding. And, as you and I, what we have in common is that we volunteered at this education nonprofit for a number of years. So you know that I'm really passionate about education. So I actually found my dream job in ed tech. It's a
Yeah.
combination of working in tech and working on the intersection of social impact, something good for the world, as well as technology. And that Yeah, it was my dream job in so many ways. It was a marketplace. I was managing a lot of people. I managed a P&L, worked with product. And then on that job, after a while, I think it was 18 months, which by the way, in startup world, it's almost like 18 years.
Yes, it is.
After that, felt, I didn't feel like as burned out as I was before, but I definitely felt like I thought this was what I wanted.
Mm.
And it really turned out wasn't. And it felt like I was, like, dating the right person who would make my family happy. Everything was so good on resume, but there was no chemistry, you know? And after that, and giving myself another chance to test out if being in the tech world and corporate world was right for me, I realized that, okay, maybe I can do something else. I don't know if this is it. It was better, but I don't know if it was it. And thus started my journey experimenting now to becoming a coach.
Yeah. What a beautiful, beautiful story. What I love about the story is that I think sometimes we think, that's my dream job. I'm going to go after that. And I love that. I love it when people are like, this is the dream job.
Mm,
And then when you feel like it's not right, you're like, oh no, what happened? This was supposed to be the dream, right?
yeah.
And I tell clients this all the time. I ask them, do you think that was the dream job for a version of you that you no longer are?
Mhm.
And I think that's like a very big moment for people when they hear that because it makes this idea of we evolve very real and very tangible. So there's a version of you for whom the ed tech job, the startup, that like philanthropic work was very, very important. And it may have been the dream for a version of you that's an outdated version of you. And I mean, that's amazing that you were able to recognize that and then have the courage to also step away from that dream to go within, it sounds like, and figure out, what do I need right now? What does this version of me need?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with what you said. Just because it's a dream doesn't mean that we will continue having the same dream for the rest of our lives. And, in my spiritual practice, there's this concept of impermanence. Everything is always in flux and changing. So
Yeah.
when we're present to how we actually feel, what do we want in this season of life, then we can evolve, like you said, then we can update this version of a dream. But it doesn't mean that we failed or we did something that wasn't true to us. It's just that different seasons of our lives invite different dreams and maybe different practices and different ways of showing up and different being. So that is sort of the only constant, right? That good old cliche, change is the only constant. And the older I get, the more I'm like, wow, all these cliches are actually such deep wisdom.
Hmm. Yeah. Tian Tian, what were some of the biggest pivot points along this journey when you say you left that role at that ed tech startup? After that, what were some of the seasons that you went through that were the most, I guess, the most transformative for you, getting you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because right after I left the startup job, actually, yeah, I knew I wanted to be a coach. It was always something that came naturally to me. We met at this nonprofit organization in which we were mentors. And I've always mentored and coached people, just didn't label myself as such. So that's what I started doing. And I started coaching, and I also was doing some consulting work on the side as well, just to make sure there's some financial sustainability as well. And the niche that I was doing mostly mindset coaching at the time, which worked for some time. And then what happened, this was during COVID. And what happened was actually the world opened up. This was post vaccination and the borders were opened up. So then I actually became a full time traveler. My partner and I were nomadic, and we went all around the world for some time, going from India to Bali to Hawaii to driving through 10,000 miles in the US. And I didn't realize I didn't set a goal. I was like, I need to accomplish these on my travels, right? I kind of just went with the flow. And now looking back, I realized actually my journey was very much one that helped me build and strengthen and grow my spiritual foundation, meeting with a lot of gurus and masters and indigenous leaders all around the world gave me a lot of inspirations. And I was very much soaking in their wisdom and their teachings to then inform me on the coaching I do now, which is holistic transformation coaching. And a lot of people hear this term, they might be feeling like, "Oh, that sounds nice, but what does that actually mean?" Right? And so I'll break it down piece by piece. Holistic means an integrated body, mind, soul approach, looking at not just a compartmentalized or fractured version of ourselves, but our whole person. And this could mean we're not just looking at your work, right? A lot of people come to me with career transitions or being burned out in their job. And it's not just the job, because sometimes even after we switch and go to a new job, the same pattern arises. So I help people look at their whole person. And transformation really means shifting something within a person's core belief and core values and core perspective that we might inherit from our parents or society that doesn't feel true and aligned, and therefore making us feeling drained or feeling like we're just doing it because I feel like I should be doing, right? And really helping people find a way of being to step into a place of empowerment and allowing them to redesign their own life in their own way. And then coaching, as you know, as a coach, that's something where we help our clients find clarity and then take sustainable actions towards this version of themselves that they want to embody. And that requires intention and as well as time. So that transformation is over time rather than immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for walking us through that. What are some of the tools or frameworks or mind shifts that have been really helpful for you during this transition, this transformation that you went through? And then what are some that you use for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that actually all these tools that helped me are ones that some of which I got training and certification in and now bring into my coaching container. So even though during my journey, a lot of times I ask, how is this gonna, be related to anything? And now I look back, everything happened for a reason and is contributing to this um, version of myself that I'm showing up as a coach and to have this capacity to hold space for my clients. So I will just name a few like modalities and tools and that really works and resonate with me as well as the clients I serve. And first and foremost, it really is a somatic practice and nervous system regulation and this embodiment practice. And what I mean by this is that for myself, as well as what I see in a lot of my clients right now, is that there's this disconnect between our body and our mind, just like we talked about in the beginning, right, of our conversation. Our mind thinks one way and our body is telling us these signals and sometimes to the point of screaming at us. So embodiment somatic tools are here to help us safely return to the body. So I am a trauma informed somatic practitioner as well. I teach yoga and qigong and offer restorative practices. And I package them in very doable, even in, let's say you have 10 seconds or 5 minutes, 1 minute, right, in your day into a practice that over time will help us connect with our body to really into our intuition to then ask ourselves, is this what I really want? And of course, then our mind is here to collaborate with the rest of, our body as well as our soul and our hearts. So is this collaboration? That's probably the tool that I use. It's like pretty forefront and it's pretty different versus a lot of coaches out there. A lot of coaching is mostly just mindset based, though these days I've seen more people incorporating that in something more holistic into their coaching container. So that's one. I'll say two is very much what I want to call this, like seeing nature as a teacher and land-based practices. And what I mean that by that is, we're currently in like winter, right? The temperatures are dropping to the 40s in California, which I know is not real winter, but it's still pretty cold for us Californians. So winter is going from this very vibrant, young summer energy to this very restorative yin energy where we're retrieving and finding that stillness and cultivating that within us. So I really use these like seasonal rhythm and seasonal guide as a way to help my clients understand their own rhythm, right? So, for example, I have one client who is not a morning person, yet she has a job that requires her to wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. And that's against her nature. Then after we became aware of that, we helped her essentially change her schedule. She's in the healthcare industry. So there's certain shifts that you can take, right? And also reduce the amount of shifts that she has to do in which is against her nature. So that's what I mean by using nature as a guide and really understanding our own rhythm and how that can feel true to us. And then I also get a lot of inspiration from a lot of therapy frameworks. So, for
Mm.
example, internal family system is a framework in which we talk about how there are different parts of us. There's different versions of us. There might be the rebellious side, and then there's the manager and the protector, right? It's like, don't do that. So, oftentimes when we feel like, oh, I'm conflicted, it's because these different parts within us are fighting and having argument.
Yeah.
So just understanding that there are different voices and different parts and having attunement to what is the part, what is that part trying to say and trying to do? And what is their intention? And then how do we work with these different parts to then come to a place where we feel at peace with our decision? Right? That really helps. And yeah, these are some examples. And of course, I use a lot of mindset frameworks that we normally use in coaching as well. Practice is very much integrated based off where the client is and what I feel like would support their journey in
Mm.
clarity.
Yeah. I love that there is so much of in your practice, a lot of embracing of who you are and where you are right now, because I think it's so easy to get caught up in what the world expects from us and go against our nature and
Mm.
feel like that's normal. And so I love that you're out here normalizing that actually that's not the way to do it. You should be in tune with who you are and how you operate and what's best for you and then build from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's not this like, I would just add one thing, which is it's not this either or, it's me or the world that I'm choosing. It's understanding that, for example, right, even day of the week, right, Monday through Sunday,
Mhm.
it's a human construct,
Yeah.
actually, right?
Yeah.
Months, the year cycle, it does follow the sun and the moon. So at least that is a reflection of what nature is doing. But definitely weekday is a social construct and working 5 days a week. A lot of companies are looking at 4-day week, work week. So it's understanding, okay, this is the world we live in. These are the structures. And maybe some of these structures don't work for me as an individual.
Yeah.
So then how do I understand what works for me? And then also working within the system to make it work through a lot of practices like boundary setting, for example, right? To
Yeah.
help us not feel drained and stressed and burned out all the time, just to create this protective bubble around us such that we we can also feel a lot of joy in life, right?
Mm.
We can feel a lot of ease, even though life is a lot of stress. It's not that we're trying to minimize stress. There's no life that is no stress, right? Is how do we
Mhm.
cultivate capacity to hold stress and also know ways in which we can recharge and re-energize and restore ourselves. So it's both and.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Tian Tian, do you have a signature framework or philosophy that you use that folks tend to associate with you and your practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I have a few center frameworks and I can share one that feels most alive. I actually just did a workshop for a group of Asian women
Hmm.
who feel burned out and stressed with life. And so this framework, sometimes I laugh at myself because it's called 5 Rs. It sounds very much like a business school framework, right? Model or like a consultant model.
Mhm.
And it's true. And I I will name the 5 Rs is essentially first step is recognize our patterns, being aware of what is happening to us. So that's number one. And two is regulation. And what I mean by regulation, it really goes back to this nervous system regulation and somatic regulation, getting back into our body, right? To tap into that wisdom. And three is redefine success because a lot of us, our version of success is inherited and borrowed from the stories that we hear from our family or society or our work or our school, from our environments, right? So redefine success means how can we look at whether or not these success metrics are things that will actually bring us joy? Do we feel alignment with the way success is being defined? And for some people, it's yes. And for some people, it's no. So this is more like reassessment, right? And after this step is redesign. And I know you and I are both huge fans of designing my life. So redesign is actually all about, hey, I'm going to be put on my scientist hat and set up a scientific experiment, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to have a hypothesis like maybe these are the shifts I need to do to create structure to ensure that my life is and my work life is aligned in the way that fits me. And the key here is experimentation because we're not going to get it right the first try, right? It's through series of experimentations then inform us on what works for us. And then last one is really root in rituals. And what I mean by that is that this isn't just work that we do once, right? And we're set.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing practice. So rituals is my version of having a routine, having a set of practices that really ground us and help us continue to stay true to who we are. And as we talked about earlier, that truth changes over time with different seasons of life that we're in. So, how can we be attuned to what that is for us and have this carve out time in everyday schedule to feel ourselves when the world demands so much of us? So, this ritual part really ensures this long-term sustainability, making sure there is actual transformation versus, hey, we work with our clients and then right after the engagement, they revert back to their old patterns. I don't want to see I don't want to see that. I'm into long-lasting, sustainable, doable, practical transformations.
Yeah. In your experience working with high achieving individuals, what do you think is the number one barrier that you see that prevents us from stepping into the version of ourselves that we really want to embody?
Yeah, that's absolutely such a great question.
Yes. I do think about these questions.
Oh, yeah, I've always known you as someone who's thoughtful. Just continue to be impressed over the years, right? Over our decade-long relationship.
Hey, ditto.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like for a lot of us, I'm also high achiever, recovered burnout. And for a lot of my clients, what I hear the most, and then I'll talk
Mhm.
about what I actually think is the number one thing that prevents people from stepping into their highest version of themselves. A lot of people feel like it's their fault, right? People feel like
Mm.
if I just try harder, if I just worked harder, I could have fixed this. I could have done that. And that's not true because we're always doing the best. We're doing our best, right? We're trying our best. So, and we have a lot of my clients tend to be high achieving perfectionists, people pleaser, right? And have these like self sabotaging, ruminating thoughts sometimes that get in the way. But that's because we're so used to pegging our success to this like almost unachievable high standard out there. So actually, what I really think is the number one preventer, number one reason is actually people don't really feel safe enough wanting what they actually want. And I'll
Mm.
tell you what that means. And so most people I work with, high achievers, what I hear they want is actually what a lot of us want is a quality of life, right? More ease, more joy, more time they get to spend with their friends, their family, their loved ones, space to do hobbies and leisure time, right? And also a work, a job that makes them feel alive, right? And what we see sometimes is the opposite is people are feeling numb or dissociated or burned out and working a job that sure makes a lot of money or has other benefits, but makes them feel almost dead on the inside. And the issue here is that a lot of us are our nervous system is actually still in survival mode, in this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which then shows up as these patterns of being overly committed, overly responsible, therefore not be able to set boundaries or say no to people, right? Or fight is like avoiding. I'm just gonna distract myself by doom scrolling or checking Slack or working a lot, right? I don't want to think about it. And people pleasing is fine, right? It's like, well, this is not what I want, but that's what you want. So let me do what you want so you like me. So I don't disappoint you. So a lot of our tendencies, our patterns is a survival response because that survival response is activated by our sympathetic nervous system. And in the old days, when we were hunter and gatherers, our sympathetic nervous system was activated when we were chasing by a lion, right? And we're in danger. Well, a lot of times in modern day life, even a Slack pin, right? The sound of getting a Slack message, it puts our nervous system into this like, oh my God, you know, my body, our brain knows, but our body doesn't know. Our body feels like, okay, I'm in danger, right? And then we respond by defaulting to our old habitual patterns. Then it doesn't come from a place of well resource or like, okay, this is actually what I want. So that's why a lot of my work goes back to how do we regulate our nervous system, right? How do we learn to, yeah, actually learn how to relax and rest, which for a lot of high achievers, you'd be surprised. That is very hard to do.
Hmm.
People have a day off and a lot of times they're like, "I'm resting," or "I'm resting." They're actually just, like, so used to the nervous system is so used to doing so many things that
Yeah.
we actually we're in this culture where we don't know how to rest. And
Yeah.
the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system works as yin yang or like the sun and moon,
Mm.
right? There's a cycle, there's a season for each. There's a season to be high
Right.
achieving and go, go, go. And there's a season to be, okay, I can fully relax. So
Yeah.
a lot of what we're here and called to learn is actually how do we transition? How do we transition from that work place intensity, right? And complete that cycle to then fully allow ourselves to relax rather than still checking email and replying to work messages at midnight, even when we're at home and having a lot of Sunday scaries. A lot of people
Mm.
feel that.
Yeah.
And to come back to a place where we can be fully present, right?
Mm.
Resting or resting. When we're at work, all right, I'm gonna give it my all, right? I'm gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. The Sunday scaries are a real thing. I was it's funny because I was literally just talking last night to a friend of mine about I get emails. Most emails that I will get actually come into me on the weekend and Sunday especially because I work in the career space. And so it's almost like you can feel the energy through the email of someone just like aggressively looking for a solution. They're like,
Mhm.
I don't want to go to work tomorrow,
Yeah.
or I'm not happy. All of a sudden, the reality or this reality of their situation settles in on Sunday because they have to go to work the next day. And that's when you really know, and I'm always thinking about, my own practice with those emails. I let them sit for a while, and then I'll respond, middle of the week,
Mhm.
and what ends up happening is I don't hear back until another Sunday, and I'm always thinking like, this person really needs ongoing support to
Yeah.
deal with whatever they're dealing with.
Mm.
And it's not like a quick fix. A lot of the times with my work, I tell people, like, this isn't like a quick fix thing.
Yeah.
You need to incorporate rituals and practices to manage your well-being
Mhm.
and be well while you are also changing course if that's the plan. And sometimes you just need some wellness practices, and your job is manageable,
Yeah.
right? And so that very much resonates with me when you talk about the Sunday scaries.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're social animals as humans. We're used to be in community. Back in the days, we all lived in villages, this and now we live in this hyper individualistic society where a lot of times we feel like we gotta do things alone, right? And that results in, these stories we tell ourselves of, "Oh, I'm not doing enough. It's me. I blame myself. I'm the issue."
Mm.
Right? So even asking for support, having the awareness that we need support, and then seeking out for support and accountability, and really someone else to reflect back at us, to go through the journey with us. I feel like
Yeah.
that's something where a lot of us don't, and a lot of my clients I see and other folks who are not my clients, I see, like, don't give themselves the permission to do until a point of, like, desperation where the situation is very dire and they're like, "Okay, I need something." And I just wanna normalize that we're all human, We
Yeah.
all need each other, we all need support, and we're all going through this together, and just like you said, you can feel the energy, right? We all feel this collective energy. We're all intuitive and sort of in this like life and progress and humanity together, right? We're
Yeah.
not alone. So I just want to put it out there.
Yeah. Tian Tian, I've always experienced you as someone who is very quantitatively like metrics driven, and you care a lot about data, and even I can feel it in this conversation. I mean, we've had several conversations about your work, and I'm always impressed at how much you understand the science and how the body works, and how very intelligently you can speak about that and help break down these really complicated concepts into here's what this means and here's why it matters. My question for you is, in business, your previous life, right? Wall Street and tech and an MBA, go-to metrics tend to be like revenue growth, ROI, right? When you transitioned over to doing coaching, did you feel like you had to let go of that, or did that construct just kind of shift for you? Like it seems like a lot of things, you had to redefine them and reframe them for yourself.
Yeah.
What are some of your signs that when your work that you're doing in coaching is actually working? Do you tie that to any kind of like quantitative or qualitative? I mean, I know I use qualitative metrics, but I'd love to understand how you see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, love this question. And as you know, I love metrics. I'm definitely a quantitative person, and in my previous careers in, strategy and finance operation, I was looking at a lot of KPIs and metrics and also qualitative data. And, even in that startup, a lot of my work was looking at voice of the customer. So like translating a lot of qualitative data into quantifiable data. And that continues to be the way that I show up in my line of work right now. And I'll give you some examples to help you understand. Um, Actually, a lot of qualitative data can be quantifiable if that's the framework that we want to go. And I'll yeah, I'll give you an example, like, in what I see in my clients, right? Because we're so used to, like, an outcome and a number, right?
Yeah.
If someone wants to lose weight, they can see the numbers go down, right? And that's,
Yeah.
like, success for them. But sometimes this work of coaching and finding clarity and confidence and going forward, it might not be as easy to pick a standardized metric, right? If it's something like my clients and I are working on regulation and having more connection with their bodies such that they can make aligned decisions for themselves going forward in work and life, then maybe it's how quickly do I come back to this place of centeredness and groundedness? Maybe in the
Mm.
past 3 months ago, it was, oh, I was so triggered by my manager. And then they think about it for a week or 2 week, right? And now it's like, okay, I was definitely triggered by my manager, so I'm naming that. And then I also have these regulation tools, and I have the awareness to help myself come back to my centeredness. And look, it only took 2 hours. So
Mm.
that's a way in which we can measure progress, right? Another way that I help my clients look at progress is, a lot of them are very busy, very overwhelmed by
Mhm.
work, oftentimes high achieving and overwork, right? And they feel like never have any time by myself. I don't even know whose life this is. I'm always doing things for other people. Then a metrics that we can use is how many hours are we reclaiming back? That is
Mhm.
the client's time to do whatever it is they want, even if it means doing nothing and just relaxing, right? Or reading or any leisure activity, time spent with friends. So that's a way of quantifying sort of the impact is I reclaim this much time back. That's just me. And I'm fully present when I'm doing these activities rather than thinking about work and, splitting that attention. Another one that's kinda interesting that can also be trackable is shifting the language from, "Oh, I should be doing this. I have to do this. I must do this," to more of, "I'm choosing to do something," right? I feel empowered. I'm learning, right? And even naming their needs. So just looking at frequency, if we had a recorder that records everything that we say, right? It's just like looking at the frequency of these words in our lives.
Mhm.
And yeah, so, there's so many ways in which we can
Yeah.
both qualitatively track our progress and also quantitatively track our progress. And this is just like a way in which we measure progress. And I always love to say to my clients that how do you know that you're making a change? How do you know that things are working? It's pretty simple. It really is. They feel good. They
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So sometimes
Right.
it's actually the simplicity of it. It's like, okay, I feel good. I feel at peace.
Yeah.
I don't feel conflicted. I feel energized. It's the very simple responses.
Yeah. Tian Tian, thank you so much for sharing all of your incredible knowledge today. I have one more question for you before we wrap up. If you were to give one piece of advice to someone who has taken that route and is in a life that maybe they feel like you said, like, whose life is this? Feels like they don't recognize it. They no longer are excited about their life, right? And wants to make this change to more meaningful work, like coaching, social impact, creative work. What is one piece of advice you would give them? And what is something that you would caution them about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I tell people not to make rash decisions. Especially probably a lot of our clients, they come to us because something about their job, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and a lot of people want to rage quit, quit their job right away, getting rid of that problem. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes it's not a job, it's these patterns that we have.
Mhm.
So even going on taking on a new job, the same patterns might still repeat and that job would might still be miserable. So what really helps and my advice is just to really taking that pause and reflection to understand your desire. What is it that you want?
Mm.
And it doesn't mean what do you want for the rest of your life, right? That's a heavy question. It's a lot of burden. But maybe what do you want in this chapter of your life, right? And going from there and sometimes we don't know what we want. So it's then setting up experiments to then
Mhm.
validate very small, doable pilots to then give us feedback on if this is what I want. And it doesn't have to be 100% because this is not 0 or 100, right? 0
Mhm.
game. It's not all or nothing. It very much is, okay, I feel like 50% I'm there. Maybe through this experiment, it will increase that percentage of confidence level. And I'm going to try. And as one of my old managers in tech will always say, everything is reversible except for having children. So all decisions are reversible. You can go forward and realize, hey, that's not for me.
Mm.
And then very much reverse that. So that's both my advice and also cautions. Don't make rash decisions, right? And
Yeah.
the advice is really to tap into our desire in this season in life and experiment before making a huge change.
Yeah, beautifully said. Finally, how can I or our audience support you in your work? How can people come work with you? And what actions would you like folks to take after listening to this or tuning into our conversation?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I right now offer one-on-one coaching with Asian professionals who are experiencing overwhelm and burnout and who want to reclaim their energy back and really redesign and redefine success in a way that feels good, not just look good to them. And I also host these international retreats, as you know. And my next retreat is next May. Wow. Yeah, next May 2026 in Dali, Yunnan. And this one is for just Chinese diaspora looking to reconnect with our ancestral and ancient wisdom and connecting with nature as a way to inform the way that we want to show up in life. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And all the people who are listening and tuning in can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, my website and newsletter. And Instagram is just Tian Tian, Tian Wellness. On LinkedIn, you can find me at Tian Tian Mary Lee. And my website is also tiantianwellness.com. I also have a newsletter I send on the full moon and the new moon. So the 1st and the 15th of the lunar calendar that you can subscribe to directly on my website.
Lovely. I will definitely drop in all that information into the show notes, and folks can find you through my Instagram as well and my LinkedIn. So thank you so much, Tian Tian. Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, likewise. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you as well for holding this space and for just radiating your light.